Hey folks, good morning and good afternoon. This is the IETF CDNI Working Group interim session. And I see my co-chairs, Chris and Kevin, have joined. And I see folks that are joining in as well. So good morning again and good afternoon. Hopefully you can see my slides. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, excellent. There's not much to share there, but importantly, want to make sure that because this is an IETF meeting, we are still governed by the note well. So please be cognizant of that. Oh, that's
I wanted to add an extra warning for those who don't frequently come to interims that these are recorded just like all IETF meetings.
yes, thank you. And here's the agenda for today's 1 hour session. We're just going to talk about the milestones for a few minutes and then also cover the document edge control metadata. And I do see Alfonso has submitted a revised version. And hopefully Guillaume is on, should be joining as well. He is the shepherd. And maybe we can talk about the changes into that document. And then shift our focus to two documents that we probably have a lot more to discuss. One is the control interface and triggers document, and as well as the CDNI delivery metadata that Guillaume is working on. And then we'll spend some time on the comments that Chris, you have sent out on the client access control. And we traded off protected secrets with the logging extension updates, as Ben has some updates there to share, so we can go through that. And then, if time permitting, any other topic. Is there anything on the agenda that anybody would like to bash? All right. If not, Chris, go ahead.
We do have one piece of administrivia. We do require a note taker. Do we have someone that can volunteer to take notes? They don't need to be detailed, just capture any decisions and the topics discussed.
Anyone?
All right. I'm watching chat to see if I see a volunteer. All right. I will take notes such as I can, but I would encourage any supplemental notes that people have to provide during the discussion.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. So first topic.
I will say if you're if you, I don't know if this is for anyone else, but I tried clicking the note-taking tool and it takes me to a thing called HedgeDoc and it says I'm not allowed to access this page.
Yeah, so the note-taking stuff doesn't work quite as nicely during the interim. You basically just take notes in a text document and then we collate them and upload them later.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. So I'm sharing the screen here that hopefully everyone can see. What I wanted to call out is that we had two deliverables that we were targeting to get them completed end of 2025, which was the edge control metadata, as well as the control interface and triggers. So on these two documents, there's progress on the edge control, but obviously, we're in 2026 already. So we're going to have to move that out. And likewise, control interface and triggers as well. But we don't have to discuss the timelines now, because I know we have comments and things that we're going to be reviewing in today's call. I'm certain that we would be getting a revised document. So I don't know if that would be the final document or not. So it's probably prudent to, and I'm not sure if March is doable for this document. So we just need to think about it, and maybe we can discuss this in the mailing list as well, to see if we can identify a milestone, and then hopefully we can stick to that milestone. Edge control, potentially, it is doable for March. Maybe we can discuss that as well. And so those are the two documents from 2025 that I think we have to talk about, potentially for March or later. And then we've got a couple of deliverables that we identified as deliverables for March. And I'm not sure where we are with that as well. So again, I don't know if we have enough time to discuss this today, but maybe something we go on the mailing list. And on protected secrets, Ben, maybe you can, if you want to cast a date that this might be a March, or this might be a May or June, maybe propose that so we can update the milestone accordingly. And likewise for delivery metadata, I'm not sure if March is still doable. So some of these dates may still have to move out. And as we move out the dates, we just have to keep in mind that what we have for June, July, and September, whether those dates are also doable. So I'm not sure if we have enough time to just cover all those dates here, but something I wanted to just point out that this is something we want to take to the mailing list and figure out what the new milestone timelines would look like. With that, I'm going to stop sharing the milestone, and just so that we stick on time, the next document, the next item on the agenda is the edge control metadata. I think the key issue here was that there was a reference to processing stages in the document, and Guillaume, as he was writing the Shepherd document, realized that. And Guillaume, I don't know if Guillaume is on or not, but in my offline discussions with Guillaume, he was working with Alfonso and Glenn to see if they can make that changes in this document independent of processing stages. And I believe the new version that is submitted addresses that, and maybe we can look at the document as well. But
that's all taken care of. I mean, I don't really see why we really had to uncouple it from processing stages, but it was certainly easy enough to do it, so we did it.
Yeah. And I think, Glenn, the only reason would be that we were trying to get this document out the door. And if it has a normative dependency on a document which is not yet an RFC, then we would just have to sort of hold on the edge control until we work on the processing stages and get that into the RFC. And then any document that refers to it can safely refer to that as a normative reference.
That's fine, and that gets us past this one for this doc. We will have other docs in this group where it's not going to be so easy, and they really are a set of documents that are meant to go as a group, and so we're going to have to deal with that later.
Yeah, and maybe we focus on the processing stages and MEL as maybe the first set of deliverables. I don't know, that just top of
well, yeah, because those are the foundational ones that several others reference. That would be correct.
Yeah, so if there's no reason other than some of us reviewing those documents, and then putting out comments and going through the motion of working group last call, etc. So we can definitely take that position as well.
So as far as I know, though, we've addressed a couple of issues that Guillaume has brought up. Guillaume, I just resubmitted a few minutes ago with that final comment you had about the IANA requirement section. So Guillaume, go for it. Anything else to talk about?
No, I think you said it with, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no more issue. And I've wrote my Shepherd report already. So, and I counted on this last version 7, I guess, that has just been submitted by 8, sorry, by Glenn, number 8. So now I can send my Shepherd report and then we'll be all set.
I do have some minor, I was looking at version 7, and I do have some minor comments. They're more, textual. So does anybody, including my co-chairs, have any comment whether I reply, I guess, version 8 or what's the process here? Because we're already, past the working group last call, and I'm just thinking out loud here that before we resubmit this document, shall I just make my comments on version 8 and send it over to the authors, and if they think that what I'm proposing as changes, if those would be acceptable, and then maybe have a version 9 and then proceed with the Shepherd document?
Fine with me if it's little stuff.
Yeah, nothing. It's just more on the clarity side, Glenn, just so that makes the reading easier. So I can suggest some text, and you can look at it, and feel free to amend the text that I have. But just trying to think that a couple of comments to make the document easy to read. That's all.
Yeah. So I think that if you have comments, you should get them on the list sooner than later. We can always decide, no, we don't want to do an update. We're going to keep moving forward, but we won't know whether that is advisable or not until you actually put the comments on the list.
Okay.
So I think you should put them on the list, and then authors should decide what to do with them, whether they're going to issue another update, not an update, and we'll go from there.
So if Alfonso and I look that over and decide it's easy enough and we just do it, should we just go ahead and submit a version 9?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, that's good for me.
Okay, very good. So I'll send the comments out. Maybe try to do that as soon as today itself, and then feel free to have a look at them. And if it makes sense to you, or if it makes sense after you edit them again, it's up to you. And or you can just simply say that now, thanks for the changes, but looks like the document is good as it is, and then that would be it.
Yeah, just for my understanding, because from the Shepherd review, there have been some changes that was required. Does it mean that the status of this draft is back to the last call, or is it considered as still in the last call step? Something like that. I'm not sure if I use the right terminology. So tell me, just try to understand.
Yeah, so last call is a working group concept, and it means precisely what we mean it to mean, and no more and no less. We can organize the work the way it works for us. What you can do is, if there are minor updates, you should reconcile those updates with what you've written for the Shepherd report. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the Shepherd report needs updating. Once we're happy with it and the Shepherd report is done and everything is done, that's when we end working group last call and send it back to the review. If the updates are significant, the chairs could decide that we need to send it back for a full working group last call again, based on whatever the updates are. But especially if they're just clarification updates, our process, we are empowered to define our process within reason.
Right. Understood.
All right, wonderful. That's great. Okay, so then moving on to the next item on the agenda is the control interface and triggers. And I see Alan on the screen, so we'll let Alan, you proceed with it, given we've got comments coming in from Kevin already.
Can't hear you, Alan. Are you muted?
I send my video, but not audio. Thanks for the review. I know that I tried my best actually to respond to it so we can have something to discuss today. Use the time, and I think Jay was looking at it as well. Before I dive in, and there are some issues that I think we should discuss today, I just want to maybe take a step back and see where we are with that, right? So we did a draft 17 initially, which was extended to draft 18. And there was some kind of net new material in there, and that specifically pointed you to that, which I think we felt, both Jay and I, that we needed more attention and more review, because we added, first of all, we changed the concept around trigger listing, right? So the whole concept of trigger collection was refactored. So we have now trigger index and that as per your proposal from the summer. So that was new, and we actually added a lot of this very detailed processing of multiple extensions, how to interact. So that was the big new thing, right? And looking at your feedback, right, I didn't fully. I think I got like 80% of that. I covered that, but it looks like these areas are fine. Like they're editorials, you have some text and they're all good, but I think generally those new things hold conceptually. There's no you raise some other issues from the past, and I think we need to address them. So I think that generally the editorial should go in and we should address those issues. But looking at where we are, we did this trigger indexing and multi-extension stuff, right? You pointing out, I think today, if you have a look at your feedback, and we Jay and I texted each other briefly before the call, but didn't have a chance to talk really at length. But I think if I summarize it, I think we have 3 areas, right? There's one is a process stage and understanding that, and I think it's fully, and I'll talk about it, this whole process and how that's reflected in the document. I think there is a notion of how we dealing with offline cache nodes or surrogates that they called, right? Do we change that? Yes, no, I think there's that. And another thing that you didn't ask for, but actually based on your feedback, I think would be good to have, is that we have in the text of the document, we have in multiple places, we dealing with error handling, saying, oh, if this happens, you should respond this, and all the way to chapter 8 in security, where there are some summary responses there. So I think it would be good to have, just for implementers, to have one place, and that place exists. There's error handling chapter, to have a table or description of saying here are the codes, here are what they mean, and leave the if you want, and for others use this code, but have a summary in one place of everything. So just for legibility for implementers, it would be good to have. So all these places can be referenced at. All these places we call it, but saying, hey, for exhaustive list of all error codes, what DCDN should respond with, they're the thing. So I think those are 3 things that are content-wise we need to address: the processed, the offline, and that. And I think, again, pending 20% that I didn't look at yet, but looks like I think that otherwise we're good. Okay. So I think that would be the subject of draft 19. So do those three areas, finish the editorial edits. I think there was also something we detected ourselves. There was some I think some JSON got broken in the process. So some of the another pass would not hurt. So, and I think with that, I would kind of, once that's completed, kind of not, and not looking for any real conceptual change. I don't think we're looking at any more changes. So that kind of should be that.
Yeah. So the changes you made for the collections and for the that section on how to handle error cases, that was great. I just did a full from scratch review,
Right.
and I didn't see anything wrong with them, so that is good. Yes. I pointed out the things that I did see. I think most of them are nits, most of them are editorial. The one that you didn't mention was object list. I am genuinely confused by object list, or yeah, because what it really is you want to specify a manifest, right? Object list is a list of things, but the way it's described, and some of the funny stuff in there is it's a list, but it's contained within another list, right? And then it can also nest itself. And so I think it's okay, but I really didn't understand data because that's just another nested list. And so I don't know why we have to have two different options for it. I mean,
Data
is a superset.
What do you mean by data?
One of the options for the list type is data.
I think it's text, JSON. I don't think we have data.
Let me find it.
If you look at 442, data. Data is list of objects. That's actually is the where it lives. We're saying here are the objects. Data is a payload. No.
It is, but I don't understand why we need both the href and the data.
Fair. I think the idea is that you could provide, so those can be really big. I think, and one of the issues is that kind of you want to allow for this to be external reference. So I want to be returning, by way of example, right? So if I'm returning objects in a trigger status, and I think actually one of my comments, I think that a bit sidetracking, but for a second, right, is that in trigger status includes attribute objects, which optionally can mean, hey, you gave me object list, I parsed it, and here is my list, here is I kind of parsed it back, right? And it makes sense to actually ask for it explicitly, because right now we're saying DCDN just returns it at its will. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. So UCDN cannot ask for that. I think it makes sense to add an option. Okay, give me that, right? Give me a status with that. So in this case, if I'm returning this, which may be due to explicit request, or maybe just in response, I'm nice and saying, well, here is a list. Oh, by the way, if you want to go back and check the objects, that can be external object. If I'm using href, I can say, if you really want more, there's like 1 meg potentially. It can be very long, right? In real life scenarios, it can be very long lists. So if you want that, go and fetch additional resource. I don't want it to necessarily burden that if I'm just embedding that in just in trigger status. So that's what href does.
Right, but href is a degenerate case of data because you can put that href in a singleton list of data. That's my problem with it. It's duplicative.
Not sure I agree, right? So saying kind of there's three things, right? Here's a type, right? I'm providing you my object is going to be, dash JSON list of have you. That's how you should parse it. And I either provide it in line, which is data, or I provide it by reference, which is href. So it's not like the kind of how do you combine?
But data contains an object entry where each entry also has a type, right? You've taken one object entry out and stuck it in the main level, even though you could have just all been inside of data.
It doesn't have to be object entry. Object entry exists in support of particular object list type. If it happens to be JSON formatted, then it's object entry. But I could be returning that as text. I could be returning that as HLS manifest.
Yes, but you could represent it all in object entry. That's my point.
Kind of all in object entry. How would I do that? What should I?
Object entry can have a manifest, it can have an HLS manifest, it could have a text file, it could have whatever, right? It's all nestable. It's just, I don't understand why we pulled out one of them into the top as optional when you could have just stuck it inside the data tag and it would have been the same thing. We don't have to discuss it here. I can maybe send you a JSON example of the code, and maybe it'll make more sense, but that's my concern. It was confusing to me because it looks like, at least to me, we don't actually need that, and it's an unnecessary optimization, if anything.
Sure. Okay. That's yeah. I think we can take it offline. Okay. So yeah, kind of, I didn't include it because I felt that the kind of responded that it's okay, but you kind of, if you think there's a better way, absolutely. Let's talk about it some more. So about process, right? So I think process is it's a legacy thing. It's kind of actually there from RFC 2007. So like, if it were up to me right now, I wouldn't include that because I think that kind of it's maybe too low a common denominator, right? Is that like allowing basically a DCDN to say, hey, my status is not knowable. It's not even kind of, I myself do not know, and certainly if you know, you can report it, right? So that's kind of allowing this situation where, you know, kind of DCDN couldn't be bothered, right? But it's there, right? So how do we kind of fit it in, right? And I think that really that's not been something that we fully represented across the board. So I think that in terms of language, like, I think that once you see that it's not evaluated, it's processed without acknowledgement. So I think the name is fine. We could change a name. There's like, for example, something called kind of an option to call it handled as opposed to process, so kind of take it out. But I think it's really processing it. What it means is that I'm processing, I just don't know myself, or I cannot report the statues. I don't know when it's complete, really, because sort of it's maybe too complicated, too big data, what have you. It's not knowable.
But I think it breaks the execution sequence, right? If you say this one must happen after the other one, how do you know whether it happened?
Exactly. So what I wrote is that we need to say that kind of you cannot do that and still support dependency in execution policy. That kind of, I think that kind of, I wrote my response, we need to spell it out. You cannot combine that. So for example, if for whatever reason you decide that some triggers are processed, not as just your CDN is this way, but you are deciding that some triggers may be too big, whatever. So if you do that, so these triggers cannot participate in the dependency. They should be rejected, right? Because then if you don't know it, how can you know when it's ready? So that needs to be fixed. I think there are other issues about expiry, right? Is that, okay, I don't know when it's complete, when it's time to kind of, I think kind of the way out of it is sort of say that DCDN should not remove expire triggers if that, you know, have reasons to believe it's still processing. So just something that is kind of non-binding. If reasonably, don't do that if you have reasons to believe it's still there. Kind of. So do it like a month later instead of, but I don't think there's a way to really nail it down, kind of to say it when you can remove it because it's not knowable by definition.
Do you think that it is worth even having processed, right? We could say there's only completed and the DCDN, it's up to you to decide when it's completed. And if they decide to say it sooner rather than later, there's nothing you can really do about it, even in the existing cases. But does it actually add value to the UCDN to know, or for the DCDN to be able to expose processed as opposed to just completed?
I think process means that sort of, again, for the semantics that was initial intent, right? Is that semantics is that it's like I accept it, it's active, but I don't know when it's complete, and I cannot know, right? So it's different from complete because sort of if it's complete, I know there's a finality. I know I can trust your statues. Here, kind of, it's somewhere, right? So it's fuzzy. I think it should be separate. If we're allowing that, and unfortunately we have to, because I think that kind of breaking backward compatibility probably not the best idea. So I think I would allow for that and just make sure that it just doesn't create friction like execution policy, expiry. Just I think we need to kind of take care of these contradictions, and I think that's how you keep it. Like again, I don't think it's particularly useful or good, but it's there.
We should encourage people not to use it.
Fair. Yeah, we can do that. We can say that it's sort of recommendation, implementation recommendation or something. Yeah.
Okay.
So there is that. I think on the offline, I think the kind of error handling, that's again editorial, right? Have to just compile it, put it in, kind of it's fine.
Yep.
On the offline, like I think Jay and I, we had like initial differences of opinion. I tend to agree with you, and I think we should say it. We should say it. Hey, DCDN, if you have some nodes that are offline, right? We shouldn't be tracking that. Maybe it's a month from now. It should be your duty to, whenever you bring cache nodes offline or new kind of cache offline, right, into service, or maybe it's offline or they're old, that you need to make sure that they're state aligned with triggers that kind of passed at this time and it shouldn't count towards completion. Jay, I think, was initially feeling that maybe that kind of, while he agrees in principle, but maybe it's to maybe break things. So I think we have to look for a way how we do that, and again, not create any kind of how we do that. So then Jay you can speak for yourself.
Yes. So with regard to that, I tended to, I guess one of those things about it's in the original RFC 8007, but I tended to agree with your comment that really that should be kind of like an internal CDN concern. And ultimately, when a CDN has offline cache nodes, it should be the CDN's responsibility to make sure it is caught up with the most recent jobs, or the cache is cleared, or something to ensure that it's not populating the cache with older objects that have been purged on that. That much I agreed with. Pretty much I also agreed that it should not be confused with the processed indication on that. But it's something we would end up having to change. That was in the original RFC 8007 on that. I can see some value still with the process piece. I agree with you in terms of going and discouraging its use, but there are CDNs out there that are more fire and forget, where they don't provide any kind of status information, and you can't use that in order to go and set up any kind of dependencies or anything like that and make any assumptions that something is 100% gone. There's at least one major CDN out there that does jobs really, really quickly, but doesn't offer you that guarantee out there. So I think in the way of at least encouraging others to hopefully engage in using this standard over here, leaving that capability is kind of an important, and I think it is kind of at least helpful to indicate to people who are setting up dependent jobs that this is not a response that you can depend on or anything like that. So
I think that's fair. If we can add just some text to discourage it, and there are recommendations, right? There are better ways that we would prefer to see, then we should go ahead and do that.
Absolutely. I would agree to that.
Okay. So think those are kind of like, looking at my comments, if there's anything else. Yeah, one more kind of few maybe semantics, right? So surrogates versus nodes. Actually, I kind of Kevin, when I read your comments, I had to go and actually look for that. Because I say, hey, I don't remember us using this, but then I actually found it in our spec. So it's really holdover from olden days. So I would vote, actually, my understanding, and I couldn't find actual definition of that, right? There's no glossary where it's used, but I think surrogates are used as actual in the role of an entity that acts on behalf of UCDN to deliver content to end users. And that is probably not fully inclusive of all nodes, because you can have intermediate nodes that actually have to also be similarly part of the whole cache management operations. So I would vote actually to replace it entirely and use concept of need.
That's fine.
But we need the definition. So I just wonder, like, kind of, can we now kind of just then we have to sort of define it then, or it's something that clear enough to be implicit? Cache nodes, DCDN, kind of do we need that?
I think it's clear enough, but you can put it in the terminology section in 1.1 if you want.
Okay, fair. So we can do that.
And then my only other question was between payload type and other things. We just need, it wasn't obvious to me. I know you answered in your response, thank you. Just we should clarify things that are referenceable that we want to have payload types versus not.
Yeah, I think it's a leftover. And honestly, actually, I think a copy paste from, like, previous authors. And other kind of, I don't have experience dealing with that, so I had to kind of, when you pointed this out, like, I have to dig myself. So wait a sec, what are we saying? I think we're saying that we want to register that. Okay. By the way, speaking of the kind of registry, right? I think we are saying that extensions could be potentially we don't need the RFC to do that for trigger extension. So let's say if we had external document, for example, SVTA document, that kind of comes in, and I think we want that. We want that ability to do extensions that do not mandate full RFC. Does it mean that then whoever does that will need to go to INA and ask for registration, right?
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be through RFC process, right?
Correct. You just make it spec required, and then they'll send an email to IANA. Will send an email, and then we can approve it.
Got it. I think this is it. Right, so kind of this is where we stand. I think we have some work cut out for us, and I think so. Sanjay, to your question about the next thing is that draft 19 comes, right? We will incorporate kind of what's on the table right now. Kind of just could you walk us through the kind of maybe Chris shepherding process? So what's kind of, do we then call for draft 19? Do we call for the last call? Do we need a kind of what's next for us, really?
So I think once you have the next revision that addresses or responds to comments that are outstanding, including comments from IANA on their recommendations. So I think once you have that, you publish the draft. Kevin will have to review it again, and if it looks good, I think, Kevin, you also are doing the Shepherd document on this. So once you have, let's say, version 19 looks good, we make a working group last call on that, and then the Shepherd will do the Shepherd writing and submit that to IESG.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So do we want this to be done before March, like, or even earlier? Again, I don't think that's a lot of work, really, kind of compared to what we did before. So I hope we're converging. Kind of, do we want this done before IETF so we can then maybe trigger next steps in March, or?
We can get it done as soon as we want to get it done. So as soon as you're ready, and as soon as I review it and write the Shepherd write-up, it's done. We don't have to worry about the IETF meeting.
Got it. Okay. We'll proceed accordingly.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. Yep. Thanks, Jay.
Done.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate the review.
All right. So next on the agenda is the delivery metadata. Guillaume, I know you responded back with to the comments that were out there. Do you want to do you plan to walk through the document or the comments? How do you want to handle that?
Yes, I can browse the comments and my answers, and even show what I did correspondingly in the last draft version. So let me share my screen.
Okay.
Here we go. I just submit the sharing screen request. You have to stop screen shares. Do you see something now? Oh yeah. You want to share screen? Yes. I want to share the screen. You should see it now. Yeah. So it's a bit crowded in the screen, but okay. So let's focus on this one. Yep. So what you see on the right side is the answer to the comments that the reports that have been drafted by I think whoever did that, I don't remember, maybe Chris. Anyway, yeah, the first comment there was a comment from Chris that says we have to be careful with, if it's just about selecting transport, maybe the name CDN selection might be confusing. So my answer was that it's not about transport in a sense of transport layer or transport protocol, because this is what Chris had in mind, I think. The CDN selection is about selecting a virtual CDN that may correspond to a physical infrastructure or not, but it's even, I mean, whatever, it encompasses an infrastructure, whatever is virtual or physical. Alan said it's foundational, but needs better definition, blah, blah, blah. Sounds like CDN virtualization. Yes, it is. Right. And they should, yeah, we need additional use cases using, for example, geographical separation. And I said, right, it's true. And I added explanation in the last version. Oops, sorry. In the last version, here you can see that I explained in MI CDN selection, I added explanation about the fact that this object MI CDN selection should be, should describe, let's say, sorry. I need to remove this a little bit on the right side. Can I do that? Yes. Yes. It is used to select a particular transport arrangement, the way I call it. This DCDN transport arrangement, the list of these are exposed through FCI. Remember, there is an new FCI object that is used to announce and expose a list of DCDN CDN arrangement. And this exposition, these announcements is per geographical location. So in such a way that when you configure the downstream CDN, you need to associate the MI CDN selection object with the right host, path match, and location ACL corresponding to the, matching what the DCDN has announced to the FCI CDN selection object. That's what I'm explaining here, basically. Then, if I go back to the list of comments.
Do you want to address, so Alan's in the queue. Do you want to take questions now?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Alan. Sorry.
I think it's foundational, right? Kind of, I think it's valuable, but I think we're introducing that to a backdoor with like 2 paragraphs of text. I think if you're looking at something like, if you are saying, which I think you're saying, or maybe we should be saying, you know what? DCDN could be multiple entities, right? DCDN may advertise different different endpoints. We need to take it at the level of the RFC and actually look at the kind of flow. What does it mean for CDNI flow? What kind of, and this barely does justice. I think you just all of a sudden you're introducing a whole new concept, which I think is a foundational architectural concept of sort of virtualization that needs like 10 times more text, really.
Why?
Because sort of, what do you mean? You're saying I could select CDN? What are you talking about? What CDN? Like there's UCDN today, right? There's DCDN and UCDN. all of a sudden you're saying no, like you can select which CDN you use, the multiple CDNs I can select from. I'm lost. Like this is really lacking the foundation. And then,
well, you're lost because you didn't read the paragraph. If you read this, you can
that's
understand.
not enough, Guillaume, not nearly enough. There has to be like you want to go and extend the, I think, core RFCs here. If you want to do that, and again, if that's the intention, I'm not opposed to that. What I'm saying that you kind of you're around something very big.
I don't understand why you say it's very big first. It may be foundational. I don't know. I mean, for sure, it's not something that people requested, right? I mean, I'm the only one to bring this. I'm the only one. I mean, it's directly linked with the notion of multicast infrastructure, because this work comes from the changes of this draft. Came from the work that we have had around multicast delivery, I mean opencasting, and so I don't know exactly what you mean by foundation.
I'll explain. I think you're not the only one who requested that. I think the work around main footprints tries to address the same issue. I'm not saying it's the same, but it addresses similar use cases. Okay? I think what you're saying, again, or kind of is that right now, as DCDN entity, like today, right, in the CDNI architecture, it's one entity. You cannot have multiple endpoints. You can have like you have one CDN, and you can advertise one footprint. You know, all interfaces are just one. It's monolithic. It's one, and there's nothing else. Okay. Use cases emerged that require more complex structures, right? And footprints, the work that's been kind of going slowly, is one way to do that, is to say, you know what, I can start advertising capabilities, for example, subject to footprints, okay? And then I can, for geography, for example, and actually there is a text in that specification that explains the justification for that. For example, use case of geography, that you want to have one DCDN, it may have two separate or more separate disaggregated geographies, and you want to do different things for one, right? And so there is text that here is why you need it, right? Kind of, but
that's what you just said is part of the basis of FCI, of the CDNI. I didn't change anything regarding that. I mean, this is already part of the foundation. You can expose object, you can expose capabilities, function of a geographical location. And on the other way, you can configure a downstream CDN with metadata associated with a particular geographical location. So that's already there.
Going to footprints, and again, I'm not saying this is instead. I think we probably need to look at that and combine, or kind of at least think about it together. I'm not, but
I see what you mean, but I don't think it's that big that you are saying. I don't think we need to bring that in over RFC and change over RFCs and so on. Why? I mean, this is about delivery, so this is a right.
You are saying select CDN.
Yeah.
You are saying UCDN now has a choice within same endpoint. I can select CDNs. That's not a concept that exists anywhere.
There is no notion of endpoints in this draft, and the endpoint won't change. So we don't discuss about endpoints. They will stay the same. This is completely, let's say, independent of the endpoint. You will, on the user side, you will still have several endpoints because you have several caches, and that you want. This draft doesn't change anything regarding that. On the other side, it's the same thing. This is the endpoint that you are talking about. Is the endpoint exposed by the upstream CDN, not by the downstream CDN. So downstream CDN exposes only an API endpoint. That's it. So
It's
that's
either the name that should be changed. If you're not saying CDN selection, because right now the way I read it, MI CDN selection means I have multiple CDNs. Tell me which one you want to use.
that's the case. It's but that I precise what it means. The CDN, that's the case, because when you have you expose a multicast infrastructure, this is a physical infrastructure that is different than a unicast infrastructure, definitively. But in the same time, you can also specify a different transport arrangement that may or may not correspond to a different physical infrastructure. Let's consider, for example, two different infrastructures. Let's say one physical infrastructures, but two different delivery paths depending on the type of contents that you want to deliver. That's also perfectly possible. I call it transport arrangement, and I use MCI CDN selections to indicate the downstream CDNs to select the right transport arrangement. It may correspond to a different physical infrastructure or not. You're right, but that's.
I have a proposal. What if we change the name from CDN selection to transport selection? Would it lose any meaning?
I don't really care. If you want, but sometimes it would correspond to two different physical infrastructure. If you acknowledge that, and if you call it transport, that's okay.
I think CDN, when you're saying CDN in concept CDNI, it has a lot of overloaded meaning. So when you say kind of quite, freely, oh, let's call it just CDN, I don't think that really is helpful. I think that's just a name. That's not helpful. If you're saying that it's because when you're saying it's an object that allows to indicate transport preference, so it's still one CDN.
No, it's not. It's not one CDN. It can also be different physical infrastructures. So it can
from UCDN DCDN point of view. We kind of, again, just let's go to that level, right?
Your UCDN from the UCDN point of view, I mean, UCDN doesn't really care about the physical infrastructure, right? It just care about, that's what it care about. It calls CDN selection because for him it's a different CDN. Maybe not in concretely,
no,
but
I think it's important.
CDN means content delivery network, so there may be two networks.
I'll jump myself in. One, we're kind of running out of time. We have logging document also to talk about, and then Chris has posted comments, and I'm not sure if we're going to be able to discuss those. But I think before we pivot over to Ben, one quick comment I will make is that the way, Alan, I have read this document as that the downstream CDN, just as it can advertise its capabilities, it can say that downstream CDN, I have infrastructure that supports streaming only content. I have infrastructure that supports live content only. I have infrastructure that's more suited for video on demand. So it could be one CDN, but let's assume in this example, one CDN that has infrastructure that suits a particular type of delegation. So it can advertise in its footprint and saying that, hey, I can support live, I can support video on demand, I can support multicast. So it's advertising its capabilities, and now it's up to the upstream CDN to say that I want to delegate to you on the multicast part of the CDN that you advertise to me. So I think that's kind of where the conversation is. So I think that has merit, and I know you don't disagree with that, but I don't know if we have enough time to kind of jump into that. But I think just want to make sure that we're keeping that hat in mind as we discuss this.
Yeah, all I'm saying is that the CDN has very precise meaning in this context. It's not a term that you can really just look and use something else. If you're looking at internal overlay, transport, whatever is a part of DCDN, that should be called that. You cannot call it CDN, because again, we are in the framework where upstream CDN talks to downstream CDN. They're talking to one another. They connect. It has meaning. You cannot just go in and call something else CDN and kind of either we do, again, which what I said, maybe there is a way to then start really work around virtualization, which means more work. If we don't have that ambition here, which makes sense, we're only trying to do transport, You just call it transfer selection.
Yeah.
Overlay selection, make a turn.
Fair enough. Yeah, so let's take that on the list. Good set of comments. So, if it's just the nomenclature, I think it's easier to handle. And I will also respond in the mailing list as well with some comments I have. But I think it's worth taking to the mailing list. Thank you, Guillaume.
Yeah, so I'm not sure to understand the conclusions.
Well,
okay.
No, I think the conclusion is that those that have reviewed the document should post comments on it. And I encourage Alan to post his comments. I have reviewed this document, so I'm going to also post some comments on it, maybe, seeking more clarification than any disagreement. So I think I understand the gist of the document, where you're going. And if it's just in the naming convention, that's easy enough for you to, address. But I think subjectively, this looks like, fine to me. We may just have to fine tune it. So I'll post my comments on the mailing list on the topic.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. So on the two items that we still have on the list, I'm going to switch over to Ben. Give you some time, Ben, as you have updates on the logging documents. Why don't you share that?
Sure. So there's not really time to discuss it. I mostly just want to ask people to review the new draft. It has substantial changes. It has sections added to support custom fields, custom record formats, and sampling. So I encourage review of the document. It is very different from the previous draft, substantially larger, and even the portions that were present in the old draft have been revised. There's quite a number of corrections. Some fields have been renamed or aliased to be backwards compatible with the previously published logging draft. So it's definitely a document that needs review from at least, it needs more than just one person's review.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So I would encourage everyone here to review the document logging. It's important. It's everybody uses it, and it's a long document, and definitely it would benefit all of us if we can review it and provide comments on the list. And this would certainly be something that maybe we want to discuss that in our CDNI session in March as well. We have not requested the time for it yet, but I think we since we have a couple of more minutes to talk about it, Chris, I think we should request time on agenda for the meeting. Maybe some of us may not be in person there, but I think we should request the time.
I did want to ask while we're here, is there anyone here that plans to travel to attend in person?
I don't know yet. The travel request has not been approved yet, but that doesn't mean that it may not. So I will definitely share with you once I know.
Remind me, where is it?
China.
Shenzhen, China.
Probably not going. Love to, though.
I am also still in approval processes.
Okay. Chris, you also had posted a document on the client access. We've got a minute. Do you want to talk about that? Anything?
It's on the list. Go read it.
Okay, good.
We got 1 minute. That's all we got.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, no, that's good. It just seems like 1 hour was not enough for us, but I'm glad we got our first interim going, and I expect we're going to have one after March. I don't think we have enough time between now and March to schedule one, but I think there's enough work that needs to be done that we can continue to work on the mailing list.
Okay.
All right.
Ah si, j'étais dans le...
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.